So just so we're clear, I have no shelf control. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome back to my channel and thanks so much for joining today. I want to talk about autobi authors. And I know you could say, hey, doesn't that fit into your year-end series or somewhat? And I'd say no, because I'm doing it all time. And I don't want to talk about, my favorite authors or anything. I think there's actually a distinction between favorite author and autobi author. Yes, it's like a Venn diagram, right? There is kind of overlapping, but I have authors that I like where I would not automatically buy something from them. And I have autobi authors that, although I'm looking at my list, no, they are all favorites. Whatever, this explanation didn't make any sense. But I want to talk about autobi authors, and I want to focus on those where I've read ideally 2 or more books from, because that gives you, I find, a good idea of if you like the writing style of the author. And I thought I separated into fantasy sci-fi, then a category horror thriller, and then general fiction. And the two last ones are the ones where I only have a few of those. The big part of this video is going to be focusing on fantasy and sci-fi authors. Alright, let's start with fantasy and sci-fi authors. First off, Kristen Britain. It's my favorite series. If you don't know that by now, if this is your first video that you're watching, well, Kristen Britain and the Green Rider series is my favorite of all time. I cannot stop talking about it. We're going to have a read-along starting in January, and that's where I'm going to end the advertisement here. She's going to be an autobi author because frankly I don't care what else she comes out with. I know she has a handful of short stories in her backlog that I have not read yet, but if she would decide to write a different story than Green Rider, please don't do that before you actually finish Green Rider. We all need to know how this ends. Don't start anything else before you do that, please. But if she would decide to write something else, I would buy that. No questions asked. I love her writing style. I love her prose. I love everything this woman does. Her mind is just incredible. And I would love to take a visit to her mind and just figure out, what's going on there, how she comes up with her ideas. She is one of those, hands down, going to buy. Next up in the fantasy category is going to be H.G. Parry. She's an Australian author. She wrote the Shadows Histories duology, which I loved. Book 1 got 4 stars, book 2 got 5 stars from me, and they were incredible. Such, again, a different way of telling a fantasy story. Well, in her case, it was a retelling of actual happenings, French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, and she added some fantasy elements into the story. And she did that in such a graceful way that that could have been our history. We could have had vampires back then. I would totally believe that. Shadows History, I have a review for that so you can hear all my thoughts on that. But what I liked about it, it was rather slow-paced, but it was not boring. Usually, slow-paced for me means I fall asleep at one point and just want to be done with it. Not in this case. I loved the way she structured the dialogues. I loved the way she had that slow pace across the book. It picked up in book 2. I loved how she wove in these magical elements, and the magic system in general was also rather creative. And then the element of the vampire and how she explained vampires, also slightly different than the usual mythology that you have around them. So very well done. She has one other book that I have on my list to read, which is something with the Secrets of Uriah Heep. Again, I'm putting the book up here. I know she's working on something else. I have no idea what publish dates are or whatnot, but definitely the one backlog item from her is very high on my TBR. Next up is Markus Heitz, and I've talked about him once before in my really long series that I want to read video. He is my favorite German author. He read so many incredible classic fantasy stories. The Dwarfs and the Alfer are the ones that got translated into English, but he wrote a bunch of other stuff. And I just recently, when I was talking with my mom, who still lives in Germany, we were talking about him, and I started looking on Amazon Germany, like what are the other titles that he has that he came out with since I have not been living in Germany anymore. And there were a handful, and guess who bought them? Pretty much all. So Yes, auto by author, no questions asked. Although I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of he has a vampire series. I haven't read that. I started reading that one a long, long time ago and didn't like that as much. But maybe I have to reread it again, I don't know. But when it comes to his classic fantasy series, yes, give those books to me, all of them. The next one that I'm putting on my list is R.A. Salvatore. And he is also one of those that is really good in writing classical fantasy. And he has been around, I don't know, how long is this guy writing? He's still publishing books. It's incredible. The majority of his books are around the Legend of Drizzt series. I've read the first trilogy, and again, I want to continue with that in 2022. He makes something super simple, puts it into a slightly new twist, and all of a sudden, you're completely fascinated by that character and by that character's animal companion, by that character's friends, and by the world he's living in. What I really liked about that first trilogy is he doesn't go into super detail. It's not epic, but he keeps it simple. He doesn't overcomplicate things. They are easy reads. They are like between 300 and 400 pages long, each book of that trilogy. And I don't think it gets much bigger as he continues with that series. But he takes something known, something simple, and just puts it into a beautiful package. Plus, he has other books out there. He has other fantasy series, all again classic fantasy. So one of those authors that I will continue reading, that I want to definitely continue exploring the Legend of Drizzt series from, and where I want to explore all the other backlog items that he has. I think that will keep me busy for some time. Next one has to be S.A. Chakraborty. She came out with the Devabud trilogy, which is a Middle Eastern inspired kind of, it's not young adult, I wouldn't say young adult, maybe new adult fantasy series, and that was phenomenal. I mean, I enjoy Middle Eastern inspired stories, I really do, and I think she has done it in a great job in putting that story together and telling it in the way that it makes it interesting to you. She was not trying to alienate anyone, she was not trying to over-explain anything, she took something that not everyone might know and explain it in a way that you would understand it even if you have no clue what Middle Eastern mythology is all about. And it was just, again, incredible storytelling, and her writing style is just so engaging that I thought, yep, no matter what she comes out with, I'm going to buy it. And I think she is working on something. If I remember correctly, I don't think their title or cover or any of that or even publish date is not known. But if you go on Goodreads, you can see that there is an untitled book out there. So, yeah. Next one, we have another author from Australia, is Trudi Canavan. And that is kind of a feel-good author for me. I've read her, is it 5 Priests, I think? Something with 5. I'm not 100% sure. Again, I will pull it in here. I've read her Sonia trilogy and the follow-up trilogy for that. So I've read those 9 books from her, and I have the Millennium Rule one on my list for 2022. And again, something known where the author was capable of putting a unique twist onto it. Classic fantasy, strong female characters. And the one thing is, what I like about it is, I enjoy strong female characters, but what I see more often than not is that it is an exceptional person. Excels in everything. Perfect in everything. Knows everything, you know? And that's not the case for Trudi Canavan. Her characters struggle. And her characters have a tremendous growth throughout her trilogies. Trudi Canavan, I love her. I owned all her books back in Germany. I unfortunately had to sell them when I moved over here, but since then I bought all of them in ebook version. I have the first 3 books of the Millennium Rule in here. And yes, I cannot wait to read it. All right, that's it for the fantasy category. And I know I kept calling it fantasy sci-fi, but it's just fantasy. Here we are. Next category is fiction, and I actually only have one author in there, and that's Margaret Atwood. I've read 2 of her books, The Heart Comes Last and The Handmaid's Tale, and I love both of them. Even though I didn't like the ending of A Heart Goes Last, I liked her storytelling. Again, there seems to be a pattern here, huh? But first of all, incredibly creative story that she came up with, in both cases, Handmaid's Tale and The Heart Goes Last. What I really like about Margaret Atwood in both cases, the way she creates excitement in this story, I thought was very unique. She has a really good way of writing a story so you don't put the book down. You're constantly like, okay, what happens next? Oh my god, is this for real? But what happens next? And really, how is this happening? How is this even a thing? And you have a hard time putting the book down from her. And I already have a bunch of her books on my wish list that I want to tackle next, but since fiction is not necessarily something that I read all the time, it will take me some time. But she is an author that just because of reading those 2 books, I've started to really enjoy, and I cannot wait to test some of her backlog items. And then finally, I wanted to talk about thriller horror, kind of that category. I'm throwing it together because the first author that I want to talk about kind of falls into both, depending on which book you're talking about, and that's Zoje Stage. She definitely is a new find for 2021, thanks to Jake from the Bookish Drummer, and I loved it. I mean, hands down, her writing is amazing. Again, similar to Margaret Atwood, the way she gets you excited about the book and creates a story that you do not want to put down and you do not want to stop. And actually, at least the 2 books that I really, really loved by her, Wonderland and Baby Teeth, I read them in like 2 or 3 days. So that is actually pretty quick for me. Amazing. I mean, this woman knows how to write a suspenseful story. And she knows how to keep you on the edge of your seat and how to keep you excited. Incredible. And then such mind-bending stories just in itself where you're just like, what the hell am I reading? And the other one in that category that falls more onto the thriller side is Liv Constantine. I've read The Last Miss Parrish and The Wife Stalker, and I have The Stranger in the Mirror on my list. And then there's one more, which is The Last Time I Saw You. Those are all the 4 books that they have out. It's an author pair, so it's one name, but it's 2 women that are writing together. And I love their thrillers. Again, very suspenseful. And the twist at the ends, so well done, especially in The Wife Stalker. I was sitting there. I did not see this coming. Not even close to seeing this coming. You know, usually in thrillers you have kind of an inkling on where this is going. Zip. Nada in that case. The Wife Stalker walked on and you're like, oh yeah, of course it's that person. And then that twist, I was like, okay, I had no idea. And it was so good. The way she revealed it was so elegant, and man, it was just so good. And the same with The Last Miss Parrish. Slightly different. It's not as much as a suspenseful thriller as more of a con story, but still amazing writing, amazing reveal at the end. And in that one in particular, I like the being in the head of the con artist and kind of what she was thinking while she was doing things. And I love those type of things, right? Being in the head of a person that does kind of messed up things. I love it. Whatever they come out with, I will buy it. All right, those are my auto-buy authors. Are there any ones where you said like, yep, same here? Or what are your auto-buy authors? I would love to know. Maybe I need to add someone else to this list. What are your thoughts on that? I would love to hear. Let's talk about that in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if you did. Subscribe to my channel if you like the type of books that I'm reading. I want to hear more about those. And then I hope I see you soon with my next video. Till then, have a great rest of your day. Bye.